Reinhardt's fist is charging up. And then I got Ferris rocket launcher, I shrunk it down. So, anything I can do to try to make it so that I don't want to hear people in the playtest like, oh, I thought that was Reinhardt. Like, no, clearly it's super weird. It can't be Reinhardt. It's crazy looking. Oh yeah, you can see some of the same. So this was actually the second revision, which is closer to what we ended up shipping or upship it, which is much more punchy. Since he's the guy who punches people, that makes a lot more sense. So when we went back to sort of working on him again, it was like, okay, let's start over. He's not going to be grabbing people as cool as that was. Maybe come back to that some other time. He's going to be punching people first and foremost. Let's do a charge up punch. That'll be the first thing we do, and we kind of got that working in this alternate fire. And we kind of built the character around that and started working with that. You see his gun was totally different in this video. The gun at the time was sort of like this, I call it kind of a flying cannon in a way. It was like...
Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to Unit Lost. I am Stylosa, and that is some footage of early Reinhardt development. No, that's because Jeff was just saying Reinhardt. Early Doomfist development taken from the San Diego Comic Con. Thank you to the guy that found the footage. So, look at this. It is very, very, very interesting the way they're developing heroes. It's also very interesting to notice that Orisa was on the screen there in a very low poly model, so a very early state. Now, if you look at Doomfist, what we've got here is he's using Farah's rocket launcher for his left hand and Reinhardt's fist for his right hand. Now, there are some interesting things with this. Now, obviously, this is how they test the heroes. We know this is the case because we've seen the way Orisa was tested with Zarya footage holding a Bastion minigun. But look at this. Look at that. Can you see coming out of the weapon there on the left, the Farah rocket launcher? There is a ball. That is because it actually used to be a cannon. The weapon did, which is kind of weird, and I guess they changed it to the sort of shotgun fist thing we've got now. However, look at this. You can see the Reinhardt fist coming through. That there, I believe, is the uppercut being used. Obviously, what they do is they use these placeholder materials because they need to sort of visualize in their mind what's going on, right? So it's like, yeah, he punches, so let's give him a big fist. Yeah, he's got a ranged weapon for his sort of primary attack, so yeah, let's give him a Farah rocket launcher. And like Jeff did say at the start of this video from the conference, he did say it used to actually be more of a cannonball kind of projectile instead of what it actually is now, the primary fire. So that's pretty interesting. So I mean, it's all super interesting to me to see this kind of stuff. Anyway, it goes on and it gets a little bit more interesting. Oh, and of course, we've got the Reinhardt portrait in the bottom left-hand corner, which makes sense, right? Because, well, it's the Reinhardt test model. It was basically being tested kind of on Reinhardt. So we can see a bit more gameplay going through here. You know, it's beautiful, whatever. It's all very early, etc. But check this out, right? These are the ability icons, I guess you could call them. He actually used to be able to throw a boulder, and he used to be able to grab people and throw them. Although I'll get onto that towards the end of this video. But I think the middle icon there looks like possibly the boulder icon. It looks like the May ice block icon. But all of this, again, is just placeholder stuff. So, yeah, you know, just take it with a pinch of salt. But it's cool to see this kind of development footage because it shows us, as players of the game, where this kind of comes from. Anyway, look at this, right? That there is Orisa's barrier, and that is Orisa. What makes this super interesting is that, well, we'll see at the end of this video, the date this was actually recorded, a bit of a spoiler now, it was December last year, 2016. I think it was the 8th of December. So at that time, they had an Orisa, which looks, you know, it's a low poly model, so it's not finished. You know, like you can see it's kind of blocky and whatever. The shield obviously looks really different than it was. That doesn't look like a kind of like a placeholder design to me. That looks like something they were actually going to do with it, because if you look at it, it's, you know, it's kind of interconnecting shapes and whatnot. Maybe that kind of fits in with a more sort of African aesthetic. I don't know, but they decided to change that. But it's very interesting, isn't it, that we've got Orisa and Doomfist being tested in the same game last year, pretty much the month after BlizzCon. That is crazily interesting. It also tells us as well the sort of development timeline for new heroes, doesn't it? Which I think is really, really interesting. So again, we can see more footage here of just sort of Doomfisting around and doing all kinds of Doomfisty stuff and using the ultimate. Now, the ultimate looks the same. The icon for the ultimate is the same we've got right now on live. Well, on PTR even, and it seems to function in the same way, but it actually lines up, doesn't it, with the leaks that came out a couple of months ago now, I suppose, and they said, yeah, Doomfist could fly into the sky and come down and kill people in the center of it, which is kind of what he does, isn't it? So I think some of those leaks, yeah, they can kind of be trusted, especially the Austin, Texas so-called Tesla leak or whatever. Right, so there you go. You can see at the end of the clip, which I think is kind of weird that they would display this on the screen, but you can see the date there. Now, I was initially baffled. I was like, what? the 12th of the 8th. That's like June, isn't it? Or July? What the hell? And then I was like, oh, actually, it's an American date, so it's December. But look at this, more first-person early Doomfist from 2016. That is crazy. That's telling us right now that they have got... They're most likely now testing at least 2 heroes at this point for the future, which is crazy, which does kind of give a little bit of, I don't know, a little bit of validity to these like hero leaks that we get, because if they are testing them like this, and they did admit that they test them internally company-wide, which is... again, very interesting, because Blizzard is a very big company. So to prevent the leaks, well, it's going to be a bit of a task, isn't it? I don't know. But like I said, it's interesting to see this kind of footage. So let's just go into some interesting tidbits that we actually got from another poster on Reddit who was actually at the event. Now, what we've got here is a lot of this is basically transcript from the event. So some of this might be slightly inaccurate, but I don't see why this person would lie. So this is what he says. Blizzard's been developing Doomfist since beta, but they shelved it for a year to generate hype work on the launch lineup. They described it as picking a fantasy lineup. They had to wrestle over, decide what characters to release and when, and Doomfist didn't make the launch cut. Alright, well, we knew Doomfist was in the game from launch because of the cinematic, the intro cinematic of the game, Doomfist Gauntlet. Yeah, he was going to be part of the story. The earliest beta footage presented was from last December. It was Doomfist, and he's blocked out essentially a rough poly phase, which again I explained in this video just means like very low kind of quality phase where they just got the basic shape of Doomfist, where he picked up a boulder and threw it at Farah, then finished her off with his hand cannon, which at this time was him shooting out of the palm of his hand. He was also supposed to have a kind of wrist gun in the first draft of his blocking. There was another clip taken about the same time where his seismic slam ability used Reaper's teleport animation. Now, I don't have any footage of the throwing of the boulder, but apparently it looks stupid, and there is footage around there if you can Google hard enough, ladies and gentlemen. His earliest undated beta footage featured Doomfist using Reinhardt's body and Farah's rocket launcher in his left hand. He also used his ultimate, which was about the same as it is now. So basically, yeah, we've seen that. That was what I just showed you in that video. But the interesting thing what this guy is saying, an actual later version of Doomfist was where he was throwing boulders and grabbing people. So they changed away from that early vision to a more updated version, then went back to the early vision for the PTR version of Doomfist that we've got now, because they wanted him to be more punchy and less sort of throwy. So I don't know why they came away from that in the first place. Maybe that's them thinking, yeah, we need some type of, I don't know, more ranged power to this hero, or it's too difficult to do a melee hero. I don't know, or because they're testing multiple heroes at once, they know what the heroes coming out are, so they make balance changes to the game and maybe change abilities so heroes fit in easier. For example, look at Roadhog. He's been ridiculously nerfed just before Doomfist came out, because I think Roadhog would just destroy Doomfist. In his old state, he would hook him because Doomfist got such a large hitbox, it'd be very easy for the hook to land, and then Hog would have killed him before Hog got nerfed. So it's all very conspiracy theorist, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? And they say that they only really started with a name that was Doomfist. They knew it had to be a badass to use all of his fists a lot, but they weren't sure how to really focus on it. They came up with the idea of grabbing and using other players as human shields, which could be pretty funny, and being able to throw them, which they did test, but they found it a lot of fun, but it made him kind of feel broken and annoying if you were the one on the receiving end of the grab, which is interesting again because it's kind of not great to be on the receiving end of a massive punch that instantly kills you, is it, ladies and gentlemen? But whatever. Also, apparently, he had pistons on the back of his legs, which they then removed because they were like, well, you know what, he looks a bit too mechanical. We don't want him to be overly mechanical. I mean, he is a bit of a cyborg, let's be honest. He's got a lot of enhancements. I think his family owns some type of ridiculous cybernetic enhancement company or something like that, lore-wise. I don't know, it's a bit ridiculous. The interesting thing is, though, they claim to have 3 heroes in development in the in-house beta at all times. Now, I touched on this a little bit myself, and I think this is probably the case. I don't know, but maybe this is why sometimes we see a bit of disconnect from the live version of the game and whatever the devs are working on, and might be why we see relatively slow changes to the game to fix things like stale metas. Now, in all defense, Overwatch has had major updates every single month since its launch, which is a huge achievement, but we are definitely in a period right now where I would class Overwatch as Declining would be a hard word, but getting very long in the tooth, I think, where it's like the same thing every time. People are expected to play certain heroes. If you're playing a Mercy, you're just going to get shat on, and etc, etc, etc. There's not really any kind of option for flexibility, which I don't think is great. So maybe that kind of is the reason why that happens. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's just me clutching at straws, or maybe that's me just getting a little bit too sort of drawn into the state of competitive as it is right now, because I honestly believe you need a strong competitive system to be able to, well, keep people playing this game. And then finally, Doomfist's Ultimate was originally Orissa's, but then they decided to give it to Doomfist instead of Orissa, and Orissa got the Bongo Bunker. I think Orissa would have been ridiculous if she flew through the sky. Apparently they say the reason for this is Orissa, it was too much of a high mobility ability for Orissa, because she doesn't really move, which is kind of ironic because that's her major weakness, the fact that she's, well, doesn't have any movement. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been Stylosa. This is Unit Lost. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like and subscribe, and you can follow me on Twitter, which is @UnitLostGaming, and I'll catch you next time. Toodaloo.